Oversized superstar sunglasses. I don't know that I can afford to put those on. Found an old house here. The boathouse is shoddily constructed. A strong breeze might blow it over. Take all. We've found an interesting looking area down here now. Actually, just go and check this over first. An ancient paint is peeling off the roof of this shaded bench covered in rust. Perception. A scattering of bullet holes is spread across the cracked wall, reaching from one corner to the other. Look, Kim, even more bullet holes. Something's definitely gone down here. Correct. Lieutenant examines the wall closely. The density of the bullet holes is unusual, even in general average bullet hole frequency in Martinet's sense. Grim affairs, like people have been lined up and shot against it. Meaning this is a lot of bullet holes. He brushes the wall with his hand. Looks like fully automatic rifle fire, something you don't see these days. Why not? The manufacturing and sale of automatic rifles was curtailed after the revolution. The destructive power of such tools proved to be too much. We do need to retain some humanity in the world. Why this many bullet holes? Yes! Firing squad. Got it. I should have been a detective. A row of ghostly shades stand facing the wall. There are many of them, a dozen at least. Their heads lowered and eyes blindfolded. It's quiet. No sound, no movement. 10 meters away, other shades are lined up in an orderly manner, automatic rifles primed. A gust of wind blows by. The coats of the firing squad flap slowly in the breeze. A single person stands on the side. The sun blazes high up in the sky, baking the planks, the sand, your skin. The order was carried out in the afternoon. How could I tell that? It's proper Sherlock Holmes stuff, is this? A long time has passed since the movement of this fusillading. Rain and brine have since washed all the blood away. Not a trace remains. What is this? The abundance of bullet holes leads to two options. Either an inordinate amount of executions were performed here, or they did not use a conscience round where only one soldier has a loaded rifle. Looks like this was a mass execution with everyone fully armed. Look at the people against the wall. Did I see the Big Ben? Have I seen Big Ben one time? If you did, it's really as beautiful as people say. I have been to London. I have never seen Big Ben, though, or the Houses of Parliament. I've seen Buckingham Palace from the outside, but not Big Ben. The only time I've seen that is on the telly on New Year's Eve. A host of men in probably everyday clothes, ragged from the conflict and covered in dust. They were not sitting, a common practice for executions in some nations, as demonstrated by the height of the bullet holes. Civilians or resistance fighters? They stand facing the wall. It's impossible to discern any details about their personality or background. I should say this was like 30, 40 years ago. Look at the line of soldiers. 7 men in combat uniforms and dark coats, holding automatic rifles aimed at the people. Soldiers from some side. But from which one? Look at the person standing on the side. The commandant, the one who gives the order. Machine gun fire crackling through the air. The lights of the muzzles flash, dancing on his face. Kim, who was in this execution? At first, the lieutenant doesn't say a word. He just stares at the wall. I don't know, he says finally. I don't know who died here, lined up beside that horrible wall. Could have been any of the parties involved in the revolution. Perhaps the ones executed here were the loyalist conservatives, killed by the communists at the start of the Civil War. Or it could have been the communists, put to death during the last stretch of the conflict by the coalition forces. It could even have been the employees of the failed R&D centre down the coast, as their building was taken over by the revolutionaries. Or maybe... You mentioned coalition forces. Could it have been them against the wall? Yeah. It's very unlikely the coalition forces were the ones who died here. They were always the last ones against the wall. To be honest, if a coalition member was anyone in this situation, it was the commandant, the superior giving the orders. And a cold sea wind blows away from the figures. Or blows away the figures. I need to go back and see that zoologist. What's this? An old ticket taker booth, no longer in operation. People paid money to park here? No one would pay now. I've got to go back for the zoologist, I mustn't forget. No, for someone who's like always lived in the UK where I was born, I have not spent a lot of time in London. I'm not a big city person. The only thing really in London that interests me would be the museums, I guess. I'd love to see the Imperial War Museum. That would be a good one, but I haven't. I've seen the Science Museum, which was quite good. Not what I expected at all. The door is not only barred shut, it is inaccessible. And I've seen the Victoria and Albert Museum, which I've got to say was a bit disappointing. The Fallon Peepo Peepo, +2 logic, -1 perception. What the hell is that? And where does it go, more importantly? Is it a hat? Oh, I've just switched it over. Right. So what was I swapping that out for? I lose 1 in rhetoric. I gain 2 in logic and lose a perception. It's all swings and roundabouts. I'll put those on. What's that do? Fair weather. I can... Wait. I can wear this? I can wear the armour. +2 interfacing. Oh, let's have that. I am turning into Robocop here. What did I lose for turning that shirt off? I lost a logic, but gained... And lose an empathy, but gain pain threshold and volition. Let's run with it for a bit and see where it goes. Okay, Ekwalaski, nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by, and yeah, say hi to the family from us. The white ceramic cuirass hugs your torso, shielding your vitals without adding much bulk to your form. Your movements cause tiny little clicks, like dice rolling somewhere far away, as the plates reorient your motions. I'll be responsible with this. This is just to protect me from harm, not to show off. The hardened, vitreous enamel, at once sleek and light, adds a glow to your cheeks and a spring to your step. Just imagine what a full suit of this stuff could do for you. You really do feel more confident. Invulnerability does that, even partial invulnerability. I can't get the full suit because it's been sent away. This gear could line my pockets with cash. I could probably sell it to some other cops. This is a long sought after enemy technology. I can't just enjoy it. I must study it. Ooh. Remember, this is a highly specialised kinetic redistributor meant to stop bullets. Wear it, observe its properties, see if there's a weakness in the design. That might be good. For the day you have to fight someone covered in the same material. I see. That is quite sensible. Okay, so we came around here. We found some loot. We need to go back and speak to the zoologist. I don't know if losing empathy is a great idea. I don't think I need to keep it on, actually. I might. Pain threshold and volition versus... I'm going to switch back to logic. I quite like the logic. And the gloves, +2 interfacing is good, so I'll stick with that. Armoured gloves. I don't know where this character's going now. I really don't. If only their chest is covered, just shoot them in the head. That's a good point. That's the way to do it, clearly. This was a dead end up here, right? It is a dead end up there, yeah. Right then, we found our zoologist. That'll be another quest signed off on.
Here we go. Nice and easy. No way out, little guys. Not out of this jam.
There's a cylinder on the ground in which the man is arranging some netting. It looks like some kind of trap. He notices you.
Who's there? Oh, the police. Hello, officer.
His self-conscious enthusiasm renders his movements ungainly. He looks like your understanding of a scientist. You must be Morrill, the cryptozoologist.
To what do I owe the pleasure?
That's sarcasm. He takes no pleasure from your appearance. Lena sent me. She's been really worried about you and is waiting for you to get back.
Ah, of course. Thank you for passing along the message. That damned waterlock is broken, and we can't go all the way around the 881.
Yeah, that was me. I broke the waterlock with my motor carriage, but it's fixed now. You can go back. We don't need to tell him that. The waterlock's been fixed. It was fine when I crossed it. Withhold the whole story.
Oh, good. We should really be getting back. Gaddy could use a hot shower and a warm bed.
What's Gary to you? I'm curious.
Did he say we can go back now?
He did.
Yes, Gaddy, we can go soon. If you see Lena, tell her I won't be long.
Very good.
Sir, your wife is waiting for you.
I just have to do one more round. See if the phasmid has taken the bait. Then we're going.
He refastens a bit of netting that could come loose in the wind. Interfacing, I've just put them gloves on for a bonus in this. Challenging success. It was worth it. His hands are large and weather-worn, but also used to delicate, precise work. Tell me about this phasmid you're looking for. Well, first of all, it's damn difficult to find, which is why we've been knee-deep in the reeds laying traps for it. What makes it so difficult to find? Good question. Being a phasmid of the order Phantasmodea, a ghost insect, it disguises itself as plant matter. In this case, the reeds. He looks around. Awful lot of reeds around, aren't there? I still say this was just an excuse to go out drinking away from his wife. And I suspect it may also have developed other specialised techniques to protect itself from predators, or scientists in our present case. What sort of specialised techniques? It's my hypothesis that it has evolved certain electrochemical defences that allow it to interfere with animal perception, impeding pattern recognition, confusing the visual cortex, like a cloaking device. But I cannot describe how these defences work, much less how they evolved, without studying a live specimen. How big is this phasmid? I'm expecting it to be quite giant. One known species of phasmid, called the Megaphasmidea zuensis, is about the size of a grown man's forearm. So, he leaves the conclusion up to you. Why are you interested in this stick bug? Aren't there more sensational animals out there? He flashes you a sideways smile. Typical rookie assumption. Insects are much more sophisticated creatures than those unversed in zoology give them credit for. Even simply catching a glimpse of the Insulindian phasmid would be the apex of any cryptozoologist's career, but to study it and its defences, find out how it stayed hidden so long, he shakes his head, would be glory itself. What have you discovered about it so far? Very little, I'm sorry to say. No one's ever captured a specimen, so all our information is based on first and third-hand accounts. Hang on. You mean if no one's ever captured one, well, how are they based on first-hand accounts then? Surely there would be second-hand and third-hand accounts. So no one's ever found one? Not yet, he holds up an index finger. That's what makes it a cryptid. The lieutenant interjects. Just out of curiosity, if there's no proof of its existence, how do you know it's real? I know it's real, the cryptozoologist says, brusquely enough that even he seems taken aback by it. It's clear that his obsession with the phasmid is driven by something more than the pure pursuit of scientific advancement. By which I mean, he says, gathering himself, I've heard enough first-hand accounts to believe quite firmly that the Insulindian phasmid is more than mere superstition. Lena said there's been a sighting of it here in Martinez. Yes, the most recent sighting was by a couple of teenagers along the coast here. That's what brought us to Martinez specifically. It's the first credible sighting in several decades. Admittedly, it's an unusual location for this species, but with all the sewage runoff upstream, it probably doesn't matter much anymore. Maybe the Insulindian phasmid has died out? The cryptozoologist shakes his head vigorously. I have to resist the thought. Such an extraordinary creature is doubtlessly highly resilient. After all, it's generally thought to be capable of parthenogenesis. He means asexual reproduction. Oh, I can understand that. Why didn't he just say so? The females of the species don't need to mate to produce viable eggs. This makes it easier for a species with a small population to survive. Females reproducing without males? A travesty, a crime against passion and common sense. Nature does not concern herself with ethical propositions. As a scientist, my interest is strictly dispassionate. Tell me more about these traps. Well, he points at the cage of mesh and wiring on the ground. They may not look impressive, but Lena designed them quite cleverly, so I'm sure they'll do the trick. Lena designed the traps? Yes, he says with some pride. How do the traps work? Simple. Attracted by the locust, the phasmid crawls down the funnel and, having eaten its fill, can't get back out. At least that's the intention. The net isn't a perfect solution, but we didn't want to use anything that might damage the specimen's delicate exoskeleton. What are you using as bait? Locusts, he gestures towards the trap. Nearly all known phasmids are herbivores, of course, but we've hypothesized that the Insulindian phasmid might occasionally prey on other insects. Inside the traps, a number of locusts crawl and tumble over one another in a tiny, chittering swarm. A meat-eating stick insect. Does it pretend to be the reeds as part of its ambush behaviour? This seems unlikely. A carnivorous stick insect? Unlikely. Thank you for your opinion. We have also included plant material in the traps to satiate your scepticism. What will you do if these traps don't work? They'll work, I assure you. The predatory hypothesis, using locust as bait, accounts for the failure of previous efforts by other teams which used plants. We have given this some thought. You should try Fallout 76 after this game. Are you kidding? I hope you're kidding. I see the smiley face, so I'm assuming you're kidding. Oh God, one of the worst games, and it just seems to go from disaster to disaster. Every week there is more bad news about how Bethesda have released something that has made Fallout 76 even worse than it was before. You couldn't make it up. You just couldn't make that stuff up. The traps do seem to be deftly and thoughtfully constructed. It's clear the cryptozoologist's wife knows what she's doing. Let me ask you about something else. Lena seems pretty eager for you to return. And I'm eager to return to her, I assure you, but I can't leave before we finish with these traps. He looks south, where Lena would be. My wife understands that just as well as anyone. Come on, Moral, we've been soaking out here for days. It's time to go back. And leave the traps? Absolutely not, he yells in response. I won't let Lena down. Come on, she wants us back. I'm soaked up to my nuts over here. We'll both catch reed crabs if we don't dry out soon. Won't let Lena down sounds like a cryptozoologist's wife shares a special connection to the phasmid somehow. I didn't know the phasmid was so important to Lena. Of course it's important to her. She's seen it. A verified sighting on record. One of only 4 this century, and it's hers. She's seen it? Really? She's sighted the phasmid? She didn't tell me that. Yes, that's how we first come to know one another, in fact. But that's her story to tell, not mine. He coughs, then continues. She's not seen it. She used it as a way of gaining his interest and attention, and as a way into a romantic situation with him. That's what I reckon. That's my suspicious nature instantly assuming that. Yeah, Fallout 76 has got that great $100 subscription now where you can pay to have even less than you had before. Yes, you get a stash for your scrap metal, and you put your scrap metal into the stash, and the stash eats it with no way of getting it back. And you pay for the privilege. It's fantastic. It's just disaster. You just cannot believe what Bethesda are doing with that game. It's just awful. You can't believe there are developers who are even greedier than wargaming. You would not believe about wargaming. When I was wearing this, right? This is 2016, the last Tank Fest I went to. I got to talk to one of the developers, and I've always complained about the way they sort of make it so that premium tanks are always better than previous ones, and people feel they have to buy them to stay competitive. And he instantly went on the defense. I didn't mention that, but he went on the defensive about how us YouTubers are always criticising them. And he started comparing wargaming to these companies that make shitty mobile games that monetize everything. And he was talking about some mobile football game where you can pay dollars for your opponent to have bad weather in their matches, an injury in their team, some disadvantage, a blind referee. And he says, look at all these things that other companies do. And now you can't say wargaming are bad compared to that. But it instantly worried me that he'd been looking up, and they've studied the monetization practices of the dirtiest of game producers, mobile games, which I loathe for the monetization options they have. And that they were comparing themselves to the worst in the market. It's like saying, well, you know, we're not really that bad compared to racists and rapists and murderers. When you compare us to rapists and murderers, we're not that bad, says the average criminal. So when they were comparing themselves to the absolute filth of the market and saying we could be worse, that's not exactly a glowing recommendation. And it worried me that they were the lines that they'd been thinking on and looking at and studying and considering. And yeah, it was shortly after that I decided I didn't want much more to do with it. So yeah, that's anyway, slightly off topic to this game, but yeah, it is bad. It is bad. I mean, there's free to play games which need to earn some money through some form of monetization, and then there's just taking advantage and bad monetization options, and they were leaning towards the bad ones. Anyway, back to the plot. So yes, this is how Lena came to know her, which I think his wife's made it up to sort of get on with this girl. You've triggered Mark's World of Tanks PTSD. I'm glad to be shot of them. Do you think an Apple Arcade service or similar may improve mobile gaming? No microtransactions. Apple have done a pretty good job of vetting the apps in the Apple Store. So if they did a similar good job for such mobile games, then possibly. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's a tricky one. Any free-to-play game obviously needs to be monetized somehow. But I assume you guys watch Jim Sterling's videos, and the way the industry thinks along microtransactions and the way they put them in and the way they design the games to make games less enjoyable until you've spent money on microtransactions, the games companies that go down that route, it's a horrible, horrible black hole, and it only leads to one bad outcome, and that's terrible outcomes for the people who pay, the end users, the customers. It's awful. Other companies that put less important things in as microtransactions, especially in free-to-play games, have got to be something that's more acceptable. But it's a dirty, horrible side of the industry, and I prefer to stay away from things with microtransactions because it usually means that the gameplay has been designed around it in some respect. And even if the microtransactions seem only cosmetic or they seem like inconsequential things, you can guarantee the game has been somehow altered to incorporate them or to maybe steer players into them. And I'd rather companies just made a game and charged me for it. That's what I'd rather. So that's my tone on it. I did see tanks for bonds, yeah. But as I have nothing to do with World of Tanks anymore, it's not something that pleases me or bothers me either way. So we'll leave it. Anyway, let's get back to this. I apologise for anyone watching on YouTube who doesn't know anything about World of Tanks and stuff and is just watching this game. Yeah, it was not just World of Tanks, but other microtransaction-filled sort of games. They're a problem for the industry at the moment, without a doubt. Like, what was it, Ghost Recon Breakpoint? New game, classic example. What a game that you bloody pay a load of money for and still has bad microtransactions in. Anyway, let's see. Suffice to say, it's long been our dream to find proof of the Insulindian phasmid together. I can't abandon course now. Another cough into his fist this time. Maybe you could go back to the whirling, warm up, come back later to check the traps. No. The traps need to be monitored on a regular schedule. What would we do if the phasmid were to starve while we were sipping tea at the hostel? He's dead set on this. I could go for some trap setting. What if we check the traps for you? He looks at you with obvious surprise. I didn't expect you to take such an interest in our work here, officer. Chaos is my method. I am its scion. I'm all in with this cryptid shit. Let's go with this. Cryptozoology and detective work are very similar. Yes, indeed. Both require a great deal of research, attention to detail, and above all, persistence. Where are these traps? There are 4 in total, one to the south on this little peninsula, by the boathouses there, points south. It's very near. Another we set in Land's End to the northeast. It's behind a small sand dune there on your way to the old radio tower after the church. The third is set near the canal where you crossed by a concrete slab, a big thicket of reeds going up the slope, and among them, he gestures to the trap in front of him. You should check at least one of those before returning to this one, since I just set it. This one's more of a technicality, but still better safe and stupid than sorry. That seems like a lot. Do we really have time for this extracurricular adventure? Why? Aren't you having fun? Even relative to examining a week-old corpse, I'm not sure mucking about in the reeds qualifies as fun, but have it your way, detective. And what do I do if there's a phasmid in one of the traps? Bring it to me at once. Just make sure the trap is closed tight. He's not comfortable with the possibility that you'll claim the find, but he's lying about this even to himself. And if I encounter the phasmid in the wild? That's highly unlikely, officer, but in the event you do, takes out a small white spray can, I'll spray you with a pheromone mixture I developed. It's made of musk and research chemicals. The pheromones should attract the insect to you, or at least prevent it from bolting at the sight of you. It's quite potent. It'll last you about a week. I don't know if I want the smell of insect pheromones. Yeah, Breakpoint flopped really hard. Ubisoft have even announced they've got like low expectations for it, but that was because their initial expectations were really high. Too high. Far too high, I think. Same with the Division 2, although that's not... I don't think it's a terrible, terrible game. But a lot of the companies have too high expectations for these things. Just unrealistic expectations. I don't want this stuff. I don't want this, thank you very much. Your choice. He puts the spray back in his pocket. As I said, the chances of you encountering the phasmid are next to zero. It's going to make me stink, and it's going to give me some penalties talking to people for the next week. I know it is. Ace, you feel you should have it on you. Something bad might happen. Ace you? What? Ask you? What? Don't mess around. Take the pheromone. It'll make you sexier. Oh, I've changed my mind. Spray me with lots of pheromone. I'll get XP for that. He douses you with the odd-smelling spray, a double helping as you present your other armpit, and then gives you a satisfied nod. Lieutenant wrinkles his nose. I hope you're not buying this. He dispenses it without letting you touch the canister, so it would be precious like holy water. It is precious. Not a single dose. Oh, sorry, a single dose cost me 50 real to develop. Not that I expect you to understand self-financing one's own research. He looks at the Lieutenant with disdain and puts the spray back in his pocket. I'm ready to go. Right, which means you two can pack up and go back to the whirling. Whatever he thinks about this detour, it's clear that these men are exhausted and in need of assistance. Finally, someone's talking sense. Thank you for the help. Gary and I will start breaking down camp. If you have any more questions, now's the time to ask. We'll be gone once you get back to it. If it's more cryptid-related business you want to discuss, you'll have time for that later too. But what if the information is vital on the hunt? How did you become a cryptozoologist? I've just always liked animals and puzzles. Searching for cryptids is a bit of both. So you're living your childhood dream out here? His eyes narrow. It's not child's play just because I have to traipse through the mud every so often. Why not just be a zoologist? Real or real? I don't know whether they're talking about the word real or real as in the currency that they use in this game. He scoffs at the concept. I know you think one is a respectable profession while the other is superstition. Everyone does. Honestly, being a cryptozoologist trumps most of the garbage I've seen people do. A hum and a nod. My methods do not differ from other scientists. I simply draw upon a wider variety of evidence, and I have more hope that something truly surprising might happen. And has anything truly surprising ever happened to you? I have yet to catch a cryptid, if that's what you're getting at, but I have come close. Interesting. Something for later, this close call. What kinds of evidence do you use? Everything from forgotten regional lore to newspaper accounts like the one that brought us here to look for the phasmid. I keep a very open mind. He's interested in things that people believe that scientists don't. You think other scientists don't listen to ordinary people enough? Most establishment scientists only care about reputation and remuneration, not real research, and certainly not the truth. They're a cowardly lot, and both the field and basement archives can be dangerous places. Have you ever discovered a cryptid? No. Very few cryptids are ever discovered, and not for lack of trying. To stay hidden is a cryptid's primary quality. It's even in the name, cryptid. So how many cryptids has been found? Of the list of cryptids kept by the Cryptozoological Society of Chemney, which is 4,082 items long, about 2,000 has been confirmed as hoaxes. 2 are categorized as confirmed discoveries, the rest are in different stages of discovery, refutation and data collection. Only 2 have proven to be real? Yes, the Shatakan forest pygmy, who turned out to be an extinct species of primate, and a cave salamander from Yugograd, who is honestly quite unremarkable. It's in a zoo somewhere. We cryptozoologists are brutally honest with ourselves, more so even than the public. Most cryptids are hoaxes, or they are never found. That does not mean we should stop searching. 2 out of 4,000 is not even 1%. In fact, it's 0.05%. Ever more magnificent should our search contribute to making that number 0.075%. He has clearly done his math on this one. There is no surprising him or swaying his opinion. Thank you for explaining that. Whew. Let's talk about specific cryptids. He eyes you skeptically. Alright, what cryptids precisely? I usually discuss these things with specialists, so I don't know what we would have to discuss, he wants to say, but decides against it since you've offered to help. You need to ask him about specific cryptids. Cryptids you've heard about from Lena or his friend Gary. He won't just talk. Which cryptid did you almost catch? You said before that you almost caught one. A willow person. It's a long story. One non-specialised would find rather dull. Willow people? Not at all. What are willow people? Is this going to be a long story? I better get some more water in. They're not people, really. Some argue that they're not even animals, as they seem to have evolved directly from trees. He says it in a self-explanatory, everyday manner. They're very, very thin, almost flat, in fact, and can camouflage themselves easily, wrapping themselves around trees and blending in with the tree bark. In that way, they're not too dissimilar from the phasmid we're looking for here. How did you almost catch a willow person? Gary and I painted an entire grove's worth of trees in slow-drying paint. It was a bright lavender colour. I was hoping one of the willow people would get paint in it and not be able to camouflage itself. After waiting and hiding for hours, I saw a figure slip from one of the trees, a lavender shadow dashing through the grove. And then? I chased it with a net. Not very elegant, but you can't be elegant in the field. And well, it was faster than me. A lavender shadow. He smirks. I know you think we were snacking on funny mushrooms. It's easier to mock someone than to admit that the world might be more interesting than you've imagined. Furthermore, he raises his finger, I am not saying it was a confirmed sighting. I am painfully aware of what goes into verifying such things. There is a serious possibility that I saw a squirrel or a trick of the light. I am my own harshest critic. He makes it a real point here to sound falsifiable. Wargaming is greedy, but at least you can still enjoy the game by playing awesome tanks like the KV-2. No, they're changing that. Well, they're changing the high explosive mechanic, and also, as Raverick says about gold spam ammo, heavy tanks. Yeah, it's all change. They've changed all the things I used to like about it. So yeah, I got into it because of an interest in World War II tanks. Unfortunately, as the game has developed, the mid-tier real tanks that took part in World War II have become completely irrelevant in the game compared to later tanks or fantasy tanks that didn't exist. So my historical interest in the game kind of died with that. Let's see. It makes it a real point here to sound falsifiable. And Lena's sighting of the Phasmid is that... Confirmed, he replies quickly. It's 100% verified and meets all the standards of an authentic cryptid sighting. Enough tales then. Let's change the subject. Did you know Gary was hiding the armour? I don't know if I want to tell him that. Gary's been helpful. Do it. Hell no, I had no idea. I'm still cross with him, to be honest. It's not like him. He's got his quirks, but dishonesty or disloyalty are not one of them. I guess he knew because he overheard what went on. Thanks, the man mutters in the distance. He doesn't dare say more. He's still glad his friend stood up for him. I'll get going. Leave. Right, nice. We got loads of stuff from that, including... I'm going to have to sell some of these clothes, I think. I don't know... Oh, I do know where to sell them.